I cannot believe the results that we got from an air fryer. They're absolutely sublime. Keep watching to see how. Right, so we're gonna make some chicken satay. First off, we need to make the marinade. Now this is really important. You wanna make a really good, rich marinade sauce for that meat. Otherwise your satay is gonna have no flavor. Pretty simple ingredients. We've got garlic, ginger, lemongrass, galangal, shallots, a little spice mix, and we're gonna blend that together and then coat the meat. Now you wanna coat the meat for at least 1 hour, or overnight is preferable. So let's cut up all the ingredients and then we're gonna blend them together. Remember, if you cut your lemongrass at an angle, much easier to cut. You could do this very traditionally in the pestle and mortar, but that'll take me absolutely forever. It's all about ease and speed at the moment. So with the galangal, you might be able to find it in the frozen section in your Asian supermarket. For the galangal, I've cut it up into smaller pieces because we're gonna be blending this. You don't want to do what I did on a James Martin's Saturday kitchen and break the brand new blender. So we're cutting it up, all the pieces, and we're gonna cut up all these hard ingredients like the lemongrass and galangal and ginger into small equal parts. That will help it blend together. Now, if I was doing this in a pestle and mortar, of course, you'd be pounding these ingredients first. Garlic's going in. Right, shallots, peeled shallots, roughly chop those up. Now, this might go horrifically wrong on my little blender as well, so I got my Thermomix on standby. I'm gonna add a splash of sugar. Now I've got my spice mix. I got a blend of turmeric, freshly toasted fennel seeds and cumin seeds, which have been finely grounded as well. That's going to release a lot of the aromats from that spices. So I've got my spice mix. You could use curry powder, chili, whatever you want, but this trio will give you the best flavor in your marinade. I'm gonna add a little touch of water in here just to help it blend. All right, fingers crossed I don't break this blender as well. Right, so the marinade should be nice and smooth. So nice. Right, so what you're looking for is that really nice, smooth, even paste. Everything's blended together really nicely. I mean, look at that color, awesome. That turmeric is really giving it such a vibrant flavor and smell. You can preferably would be using fresh turmeric, but in this instance, I'm just using a really good quality ground turmeric. Now, because we're not using a barbecue for the satay, I've got a secret ingredient. Now, this is smoked oil. Because I'm not using a barbecue and we're using the air fryer, we need to get some of that, I don't know if you can call it wok hei, the barbecue, the smokiness, because it's a barbecue, but adding a touch, and I really mean it when I say this, a touch of this smoked oil, because it will go a long way, and that is going to replicate that smokiness, that lovely barbecue flavor. And there we go, just a touch of it. If you head over to my Instagram, the link's in the description, I'll show you how to make that smoked oil. It's one of my little trade secrets. I'll give this a quick blend. There we go. Yeah, that smells incredible. Right, so we made our marinade. Let's crack on and cut up the chicken. It's really important we get this chicken in the marinade as soon as possible. So my favorite part is using chicken thighs. You can use chicken breast. To prepare the meat for the satay, I'm gonna use some boneless, skinless chicken thigh. And we're just gonna dice it up into small pieces. So the easiest way to do this is cut it into strips. It's best to remove any excess skin or fat, but make sure you keep that for your chicken rice if you need extra fat or skin for the rendering. And then you're just gonna cut it up into little 1 centimeter cubes. I prefer to cut them into smaller pieces rather than large ones because I feel like they cook a bit evenly, quicker. And because I'm using chicken thigh, it's gonna still remain that juicy and very flavoursome. If you wanna cut them into larger pieces, that's absolutely fine. There is no written rule on how these should be made. Just as long as they're all even, so they cook evenly. So we cut up all our chicken thighs. Now we're going to really give it a good mix in that marinade. Okay, so we cut up all our chicken thighs, so we're going to put it into the marinade and give it a really good mix. So you want every single piece to be coated in that marinade. And because time is of the essence these days, and I'm trying to do this pretty fast, I would normally let this sit for about overnight, covered in the fridge, to really let those flavors penetrate. But I've also got, I'm also going to vat pack, so vacuum seal this marinade and this meat together. And what that's going to do is help infuse that meat like 3 times faster. If you don't have one of these at home, don't worry. Overnight is still a great option. Just being careful not to get any liquid in that. Right, so that's vacuumed. I'm gonna let that marinade in the fridge whilst I make my peanut sauce. Next up, while that meat is marinating, we're going to make the peanut sauce, because without satay, you've got to have it to something to dip it into or have a sauce to serve it with. And I know this isn't going to be your favourite, hun, but peanut sauce is a classic accompaniment to satay. And this is my favourite version of making it. I'm going to get 1 lemongrass stalk and again, slice it very finely. 1 piece of ginger, slice it very finely. We've got some shallots. We've used red onion, white onion, and we're going to make a rempah, so the spice paste. I've got some soaked chilies. We're going to slice those up finely because you've got to have a little bit of heat in the sauce. You can go more or less depending on your preference. So if you cook for someone who doesn't like spice or heat, then you can just leave out the chilies. Just so for example, my kids, they absolutely don't really like the chili at all. So you could just leave this out for them and it'll still be a really tasty sauce. Right, I'm going to put all of this into my blender. I'm going to use a slightly larger blender because I'm making quite a lot today. And of course, the Holy Trinity, some sugar, salt, and MSG. Let's blend these up together. It's always hard when you're blending up something in such a big blender. Next up, I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of tamarind. Now, this is like some ready-made tamarind concentrate. You can get tamarind as a fresh pulp. Just add a little bit of hot water onto it, let it steep, and then give it a little stir with your tablespoon, and then you've got some really nice fresh tamarind. That's what you want to use, not the seeds or the stones. I'm actually going to add a little bit of chili powder in there because I want it quite spicy. And then I've got some freshly ground peanuts, which have been roasted and then ground up, so it's pretty fine, but not too fine because I'm not making a peanut butter. So I'm going to add that in there. Alrighty, it smells great, but it's not really quite there yet. We're going to blend it up a bit more, maybe with a little bit more water. I've got some gula melaka here that I have steeped with a little bit of water to make more of a syrup. Now, if you don't have gula melaka, you could use palm sugar, coconut sugar, brown sugar, if you don't have it at hand. I'm gonna add a touch more water into this. That texture and that consistency is exactly what I'm after. Sort of reminds you a bit more like a satay sauce now. Yeah, you want to come have a look? I'm actually going to add a little bit more gula melaka in. So I do want this quite sweet as well. Look at that. Right. Next up, because I am using a Thermomix, I'm going to cook the peanut sauce in a Thermomix on a very low speed just to cook it through so you haven't got that raw garlic, ginger, lemongrass, and shallot flavor. If you don't have one of these, just put your blender and then cook it in a medium-sized saucepan on a fairly low heat, but constantly stirring it because you don't want it to catch and burn. Get this cooking. While it's doing its thing, I'm going to start skewering the satay. All right, I picked up some skewers. You would soak these overnight or at least 6 hours in some water, then dry them off. Make sure the skewers, and I think it's quite an obvious thing, make sure it fits into your air fryer. You can get ones that are a bit too big, then just cut them. And then we've taken our meat, marinated meat. I think I should have blended this marinade a little bit finer, but it's okay. Just take the meat and skew it right down the middle of those pieces that we already pre-cut. And I'm not going too much, I'm not putting too much onto the skewer in a small space. And I'm just giving a little gentle squeeze so that it's even, nice and even on that stick. And then you're looking to give about an inch and a bit spare for obviously holding the skewer. And I'm just squeezing them down gently, just so it's nice and flat and even to cook, like so. Repeat this until we've got all of our satay done. This is probably the most laborious part of making satay. I think these days you can get boxes that can make satay in batches for you. Now don't forget to be wearing gloves when you do this, otherwise your hands are going to end up permanently yellow for a long while from that turmeric. Now, if you're like me, and when it comes to satay, I can have maybe easily a dozen of each kind in one sitting. So making satay can be quite laborious, so I definitely recommend maybe pulling in a chef or two or a friend or family to help you put these together. Be a quite nice thing to get the kids involved into making as well. Maybe if you want it less messy, you could put the meat onto the sticks and then cover it in the marinade. But I prefer putting the marinade on the meat first, letting it sit in that, let it marinate into the chicken for as long as possible to get the maximum amount of flavor, because for me, it's all about flavor. I don't know how the guys down on Satay Street managed to make hundreds and thousands of these satays for each evening, but hats off to them. Has anyone been down to Satay Street? Leave us a comment, what do you think? Now you could use any sort of meat for this, mutton, lamb, pork, beef. Kind of works quite well. I think my recommendation, if you do beef, it can hold a lot more spice. So go a bit heavier with the cumin, especially with the mutton as well. Cumin and mutton are a perfect combination. So maybe go a bit heavier in the chili and cumin spices. But turmeric with chicken is a perfect combination. I feel like there's enough here to get started, plus there'll be some leftovers for the team for staff lunch tomorrow. So I'm gonna get these back in the fridge. And the great thing about using an air fryer is I don't need to wait for it to heat up like a barbecue. So there we got it. We've got 24 satays ready for the air fryer. And the best thing about using an air fryer compared to a barbecue is that we don't need to wait for it to heat up or the coals to heat up. It's perfect. Let's get going. Right, every air fryer should have a grill feature. So mine has got one that's slightly raised, so it's closer, but just set it to grill on the highest temperature. That's going to replicate the barbecue. Let's spray it with a little bit of oil. So I'm going to do this in batches so that it cooks a bit more evenly. Right, so these have been in the, oh, they look awesome. It's been in there for a few minutes, maybe 2, 3, about on the highest grill setting there is. Now, I've got my gula melaka. I'm actually going to brush the satay with a little bit of this gula melaka, and that is going to give it a real sweet, sticky glaze. Brush a touch of this smoked oil back over the top. All right, I'm gonna put that in for literally 1 more minute. Right, So I'm gonna plate it up. I've got some banana leaves to kind of replicate that I'm being back home in Singapore. And I've got the peanut gravy sauce. I actually added a little bit of coconut milk in there to make it a bit wetter, a bit more looser in the texture. It absolutely smells so good. I think I could probably just eat this directly on its own with just this. That's so good. So I'm gonna pour that into a little bowl to dip into. Right, so this peanut sauce, you can make it as loose or wetter or drier. It's completely up to your preference. That's kind of the texture that I like. So it'll kind of coat the satay really nicely. Mmm. So good. Wow. That is really, really even. You've got still some of those nice little burnt bits on there. Can you see that? And the sticks aren't burnt. Awesome. Smells so good. Dare I say, this is so simple, so much faster than doing it on a barbecue. And look how even this is cooked. But what I love about doing this in an air fryer is these don't burn, because sometimes on a barbecue, the wood or the skewers burn, and it's an absolute pain because you've gone through all the effort of skewering the meat. Look at that, look how perfect that looks. Let's have a taste test. See, I like that thickness of a satay sauce. You can have ones that are quite oily, but I personally think that it's not very nice to have that much oil. You see, that's just coated there. Oh my God. I think satay is 100% proof that meat on a stick is 100 times more fun. It's like a mini vacation. Like, I've gone back to Singapore to have satay in the streets, but minus any of the jet lag. That's so much fun. You can taste some of that smoke oil. So it tastes a little, pretty much like it's been on the barbecue. That gula melaka gives that sweetness, and I can taste all that sour notes from tamarind and the spices. You guys have to make this week. This is one of those dishes that you can dress it up for any occasion. It could be from a street side vendor to a high-end Michelin restaurant, you know, eating it fine dining, but it's such a great, versatile dish. You guys have got to give it a go, especially as it only took me less than 10 minutes in an air fryer. Winning. If you don't have access to an outside, or the weather's rubbish, you don't have a barbecue, or you just simply don't have time, it's hands down the easiest way of doing this version of this dish. I am really impressed. So thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this video. The full recipe will be on our website, and I'm gonna spend the rest of this afternoon eating the rest of these. See you next week.